Time out with Tim O.
Open up your mind and let me in. Open up your mind and let me in. Open up your mind and let me in.
Hello, welcome to Time Out with Tim O. I'm your host, Tim Owens. As always, very grateful and super excited to be here today. I'm going to share a video by a content creator named Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh is a controversial figure. He has caused some problems in the political community and among some of the other things that are going on in this world. A lot of the craziness calls people out on some stuff. But I have to say, I, being a member of the Black community who work with the public every single day, I have experienced a lot of things and I see a lot of foolishness and craziness every day. One thing that I noticed, though, there seems to be an accountability problem when it comes to the young Black youth in the community who are acting a fool. I'm just going to put it to you bluntly, acting a complete fool. When you say something, you're wrong. You know, they want to call you Uncle Tom, you're working for the man, all sorts of crazy stuff like that. But this is the thing, though. What's wrong with calling somebody out for something? What's wrong with saying, hey, man, you're being an idiot. You need to stop. You know, how do you turn around and become the victim? Now, if you're drag racing in the street and someone gets hurt, killed, and the police show up and they say, hey, you guys are going to jail. Oh, man, you harassing us, man. Why are you bothering us for? We're not doing it. Like, really, sir? Really? Are we not? Let's run back the video footage and let you see what we just saw. Man, okay, that was me, but I mean, I wasn't really going that fast. You know what? Stop it. The sad part about all of this, that this happens in families every day. If you have a family member that's doing something they have no business doing, and they get called out by another family member, they get upset. They'll say, well, you should still help them. They're still your cousin. That's still your brother. That's still whoever. It doesn't matter. If you tell them not to do something or to stop doing something, and they do it anyway, and they get in trouble or something else horrible happens behind it, you cannot stick up for them and say, well, we still need to help them out. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. One of them. Another one is when people say, when someone tries to tell me not to do something, it makes me want to do it more. When someone says that to me, I look at them and say, what are you talking about? I literally had to wrap my mind around that concept. I literally have to take a break for that one. Just take a breath because it gets under my skin. It really, really irritates the heck out of me. Let me say it again. If someone tells you not to do something, that makes you want to do it. I have heard grown people say this. I'm not talking about 5-year-olds or 10-year-olds. I'm talking about 35, 40, 50-year-old people who say, when someone tells me not to do something, it makes me want to do it more. See? So anyhow, I would never understand that. If a guy goes over that hill and gets shot up with arrows, and he comes back with arrows sticking out of him and say, don't go that way, and collapses on the ground, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going that way because he was just stupid. That's why that happened to him. I want to go that way because he said not to go that way. Dumb, dumb, done. So anyhow, Matt Walsh explained this video. He's talking about when accountability, first off. So when something bad happens, do we actually blame the people that are doing it, or do we blame the business? Check this out. Maybe coming from him, you may want to take it. But however, I'm almost certain he'll be called racist for saying so. Check out the video.
One of the most important principles in life is the idea of cause and effect. Children start mastering the concept at around 18 months. A toddler might drop a block on his foot, very quickly realize that the block caused him to feel pain. He won't assume that the TV across the room had somehow hurt him. He won't blame the neighborhood cat for it. And you'll know the block is what hurt him. And in the future, as a result of this deduction, the toddler might think twice about dropping a block on his foot. That's cause and effect. But in politics, for various reasons, cause and effect can be difficult for some people to figure out. Sometimes it's because life is complicated. Sometimes it's because of all the propaganda that people are subjected to. And sometimes it's because people just aren't that bright, frankly. That would explain the scene that took place the other day in Brooklyn, where there was a massive protest against the shelters for illegal aliens that have popped up all over the city. You might have seen that footage on social media. The protesters said that they were shocked by all the violence and mayhem that these migrants have brought to their community, apparently oblivious to the fact that they voted for exactly this outcome. Of course, there are similar scenes playing out all over the country, but even when you take into account all these factors, the propaganda, partisan politics, etc., it's still hard to come to terms with what's happening right now in Jackson, Mississippi. Politicians and black activists in Jackson have just made it clear that they have no understanding of causation whatsoever. This basic concept completely eludes them. It's not simply that they're blinded by politics. Instead, it appears that, like infants, these activists do not comprehend that certain actions naturally lead to certain results. And it's worth exploring what's happening in Jackson in some detail because it has implications for the whole country, including the presidential race. So here's the background. There's a Texaco gas station in Jackson that's located on a street called Medgar Evers Boulevard. And recently there's been a lot of crime near the gas station, including several homicides and shootings this year. In response to this crisis, the solution that politicians and activists have come up with is not to blame the criminals. It's not to hire more police officers, increase patrols. Instead, their response has been to blame the Texaco gas station. And now these politicians, including a councilman named Kenneth Stokes, are calling for the gas station to be shut down. In fact, Stokes has said he'll bring a vote of no confidence against the city's law department for refusing to have the gas station declared a public nuisance, because the gas station is what's responsible for all the crime happening around the gas station. Watch.
Jackson Councilman Kenneth Stokes continues to press the case for a crackdown on a West Jackson gas station.
Any other city in this state and country where you have a nuisance will be in court filing legal paperwork to shut these kind of places down.
If you're providing a business that you see is detrimental to the community that you're serving and that your business is causing people to lose their lives, then you should have the integrity of a human being for yourself to say, we need to shut this down.
So just to reiterate there, what we just heard at the end of that clip, if you're providing a business that you see as detrimental to the community and that your business is causing people to lose their lives, then you should have the integrity of a human being to say, you need to shut this down. In other words, the Texaco gas station is causing people to shoot each other. The gas station, a collection of snacks and pumps distributing gasoline, is causing people to lose their lives. Therefore, the local councilman is holding rallies to get this place shut down. Now, when I first saw this story, I had to check if there was, maybe something I'm missing. Because I figured that this can't be the full story. Is the Texaco gas station executing its customers when they walk inside? I mean, is that why we're blaming the gas station for what's happening? Do they have guards posted at the door who shoot you in the head as soon as you enter the place? If so, I'll say I totally agree that they need to shut the place down. I mean, I am completely against that business practice. The practice of killing your customer. I mean, if I went to the gas station and it tried to murder me, I'd be frankly pretty upset. Yeah, that's fodder for like a bad Yelp review, no doubt. I mean, no more than 2 stars on that one. But after looking into it, I can conclusively say that these are crimes being committed by community members at and also against the gas station. So the real problem in Jackson, Mississippi is that so many people in the community are violent criminals. Which means that if you get rid of the gas station, by the way, those violent criminals are still going to be there. They're still going to be violent and they're still going to be criminals. But the rush to avoid blame and accountability is so extreme that now they are robbing businesses and then turning around to the businesses and blaming the businesses for being robbed. And we've seen this kind of thing a few other times. And for example, the politicians in Minnesota and other major cities who have blamed car manufacturers for making their cars too easy to steal. And that's really bad, but this is a whole other level of delusion that we're seeing now in Jackson. Now, when I see a situation like this, I can't help but compare the situation in Jackson to what I've experienced in my own life. So before we moved to Nashville 4 years ago, we lived in a small blue-collar town in Pennsylvania. We had a local gas station that doubled as the town's supermarket. And people used to go to the gas station. They would park their cars outside, leave the keys in the car with the car running and the doors unlocked and the windows down. And they would just go shop, and they'd stroll back out 50 minutes later with a bag of groceries and a coffee, and their car would still be there. So how is it that a gas station in one town is so safe that you can leave your keys in an unlocked car, while in another town, you can't fill up your tank without getting shot? And it's not just about gas stations, obviously. The violent crime rate all across Jackson, not just at the gas station, is extremely high. Jackson is more dangerous than 97% of all cities in America. It is among the least safe places you can live. I mean, there are cities in third world countries safer than Jackson, a lot safer. By comparison, and for the record, in the town where I lived, the violent crime rate was less than half of the national average. Property crimes were about a third of the national average. So it was very safe. So again, the question: why is one so safe and the other isn't? I mean, forget about where I lived. Jackson is in the 97th percentile for crime. So you could compare it to almost any town, and the comparison will be unfavorable for Jackson. Why is that? Can any politician in Jackson answer that question? Well, here's where we get to what for some people is the uncomfortable part of this conversation, because we all know where the answer starts, except we aren't supposed to say it out loud. Every single person listening right now is thinking the same thing, but you're not supposed to say it. But I will say it. The population of Jackson is 80% black. By the way, where I used to live, it was 2% black. Now, you might know nothing about Jackson at all, but just based on the crime stats, you already made assumptions about the racial demographics, and your assumptions were right. Okay, you heard that it's a place where violent crime is overwhelming. You make an assumption that it must be a heavily black community. And you're right. Indeed, if you look at any town in America and see that it has a predominantly black population, you can assume that the crime rate is probably pretty high, and you will almost always be correct. And we all know that. We all know it. But we're not supposed to say it. This is one of the many things that every single person watching, including the people that are going to clip this and put it on Twitter and say, oh, Matt Walsh is racist. All of them know that it's true also, but you're not supposed to say it. So it's one of the many truths in America that we've all just agreed to not say out loud, which is very unfortunate because it prevents us from asking the next question. That once we've admitted what we know is true, predominantly black community, probably going to have high crime. The next question is, why is that the case? Why is crime so prevalent in black communities? Now, there isn't one single answer to that question, but there is one major, overwhelmingly significant answer that we must begin with. The fatherless rate in the black population in Jackson, just as in cities all across the country, is over 80%. Now, you've heard stats like that before, especially on this show, but you hear it so often that it might not really sink in. Because you hear 80% fatherless. Oh, yeah, we've heard that. But really think about that. I mean, really think about it. Over 80%. I mean, we are rapidly approaching a point where married parents and intact families simply just don't exist in Jackson or cities like it at all. In fact, the fatherless problem is so pervasive in Jackson and other cities in that state that the out-of-wedlock birth rate in all of Mississippi is now over 50%. In the entire state, a child in Mississippi is more likely to be born to an unmarried mother than to a married one. Now, it is not possible to have a functioning society with statistics like that. There has never been in the history of the world a functioning society with statistics like that, ever. It's impossible. It is a guaranteed recipe for crime, violence, dysfunction, and chaos. Every time. So there is no solution to the problems facing black people that doesn't begin with addressing this issue. It is not possible to have a productive and worthwhile conversation about the plight of the black community in this country if that conversation does not revolve around the fact that the black community, generally speaking, has given up on the nuclear family. Given up on it. To the extent that, again, in a lot of these communities, the nuclear family basically does not exist anymore. Now, politicians like the one currently running for president on the Democratic ticket will never talk about this, though. As much as they claim to be voices for that community. For Democrats, any criticism or uncomfortable observation of black communities, even if it's well-intentioned, even if it's completely reasonable, even if it's something we all know, even if it's absolutely necessary in order to solve any of the problems, still talking about any of that is tantamount to donning a white hood and setting a cross on fire outside of somebody's lawn. The inevitable result is that black communities will continue to stagnate and devolve into more needless violence. And that's obviously a very bad outcome that will ruin millions of lives. But really, the problem's even worse than that because the attitude is so cancerous that it's now destroying our national political discourse too. And if you doubt that, take a look at what happened yesterday at the National Association of Black Journalists in Chicago, because yes, apparently we have segregated associations for black journalists, just like Kamala's campaign has racially segregated Zoom calls. But Donald Trump showed up knowing that it would be hostile territory, much to his credit. He did not duck the event like Kamala. Kamala, who still hasn't answered a single serious question from a single journalist since becoming her party's presumptive nominee, she could have gone to this event and she would have gotten nothing but the easiest softball questions in the world. And she didn't even do that because she's afraid of even the softball questions. Meanwhile, Trump sits down for what he thought was going to be an hour. And knowing that they're just going to roast him. And he's sitting there live on TV in front of a crowd. And then as soon as the event began, the ABC journalist did not ask Trump a policy question. She didn't talk about inflation or interest rates or the price of housing or any issue that actually matters to a single American. She also didn't talk about how, oh, hey, by the way, you got shot 2 weeks ago. How are you doing? Instead, she started barking about how Donald Trump is racist because he said mean things about some people who happen to be black. Watch.
You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country.
Now, what's going on here is pretty clear. This woman knows that Donald Trump has called white people a lot of insulting names. Everyone's well aware of what Trump has said about Rosie O'Donnell and Jeb Bush and Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and Ron DeSantis and John Bolton and dozens of other people who happen to be white. There's not a single person on the planet who thinks that Donald Trump only uses nasty names to refer to black people. What's happening here pretty explicitly is that the moderator is saying that Trump is racist because he treats black people the same way he treats white people. He insults them the same way he insults everyone else who crosses him. That's his approach. If you come after him, if you come after him, you criticize him, he's going to hit back hard and he's going to use whatever language he wants to use. And he doesn't care if man, woman, black, white, doesn't matter. Now, say what you want about that approach, but if equality is what you're looking for, then that's as equal as it gets. But, they can't tolerate that. So these journalists are demanding special status for black people. That journalist there wants to completely shut down any criticism of black DAs, black politicians, black journalists. This is the same mindset that gets gas stations blamed for shootings in black neighborhoods. Okay, because you can never turn the mirror around to look at yourself. It is the pathological avoidance of criticism and accountability. And now, of course, it's being used to derail debate during a presidential election. This is not some fringe ABC reporter I'm talking about. This is a mainstream view now on the left. Last night, there was this post on Twitter, which is very viral, millions of views, tens of thousands of likes and supportive comments. A lot of commentary like this on social media and in corporate media since Trump's interrogation by the black journalist there. This is just one example, but a lot of stuff like this. Quote, if you're black and watched how Trump talked to those black journalists and women and you still want to vote for him, please keep your black ass away from me. Thanks. In other words, he's saying very clearly that Trump should have treated that black journalist differently from any other journalists. Even though she was being as hostile and unprofessional and rude and disrespectful as she possibly could have been, even though she's approaching him in a tone of voice and with a line of questioning she would never, ever in a million years direct at Kamala Harris or any Democrat. We all know that. Trump should have pretended otherwise, apparently, because she's black. And it's not possible for black people to do anything wrong whatsoever, I guess. That's what a critical mass of people on the left now believe. It's also apparently the view of Washington Post columnist Karen Ataya. In response to the event, she tweeted, quote, I'm so angry right now. NABG. This was a colossal mistake. That's how you know, by the way, that Donald Trump completely neutralized their attacks. Because if it had gone badly for Trump, they'd be glad that he was invited. But it went well for Trump because instead of falling for the trap, he called it out. In fact, what he did is he treated black people the same way he'd treat anyone else. He was honest. He wasn't tiptoeing around or walking on eggshells. He's sitting there comfortably. The whole thing, it's worth watching. If you haven't watched, it's the whole 30-minute. I can't call it an interview. Again, it's an interrogation. But if it's worth watching the whole thing. And I think it makes Trump look great because starting with just how comfortable and normal he is. He's just sitting there like, okay, yeah, bring it on. And I'm going to talk to you the same way I talk to anybody else. You're not special. You're a person like anyone else. Yes, I'm talking. These are black, quote unquote, journalists that are interrogating me. It's mostly black people in the audience. Okay, who cares? I wouldn't care if they were white. Doesn't matter. And this is what we need now. We've needed it for a long time. A radical, straightforward honesty. An honesty that is totally unconcerned with coloring inside the PC lines. When people aren't allowed to say the truth, they very quickly start believing in absurdities like the idea that gas stations cause crime.
All right, we're back. Hope you're not too upset and in your feelings and emotions about the truth. The truth seems to piss people off for some reason. When someone speaks the truth, people get angry. But, hey, I happen to agree with Matt in this one, people. Like it, don't like it. I really don't care because I'm sick and tired of dealing with ignorance from people every single day. And they blame everyone but themselves. It's everyone else's fault besides the people that's causing the problems. Anyhow, but enough for that. As I always say, thank you guys that are subscribed to my channel, that do enjoy my content. As always, happy people do not cause problems. Peace.
If everybody winning, who's losing? Man, who's losing? I'm trying to make it make sense. It's like it's so confused. I see the pain in your eyes from all the lonely nights. I swear I know how I feel. It just don't feel right.